Welcome to Life Stories Network, where real emotions find a voice and everyday moments turn into unforgettable stories. Tonight, I want to share a story that will touch your heart, because it is about something many parents know well: helping a child with homework. What started as a simple evening at the dining table ended with words from my son that I will never forget. His honesty and innocence left me speechless, and in that moment I realized how children can teach us life lessons without even trying. It began on a quiet weekday evening. The house was calm, the dishes had been put away, and the television was off. My son sat at the table with his math book open, a pencil tapping against the page as he tried to make sense of the problems in front of him. He sighed deeply, clearly frustrated, and I could see that look in his eyes, the look every parent recognizes. The look that says, "I don't get it, and I'm about to give up." I pulled up a chair beside him and gently asked what he was stuck on. He showed me the problem, a word question that looked simple at first, but was actually tricky. He kept erasing his work and starting over, his little hands pressing hard against the paper. "I just can't do this," he muttered, almost ready to close the book. I smiled softly and told him that the only way we truly fail is when we stop trying. I reminded him that I was there to help, not to judge. His shoulders relaxed a little as I explained the steps one by one. I used simple examples, turning the math into a story about his favorite things like soccer and candy, so it felt less like numbers and more like fun. As we worked through the problem together, I noticed something else. His confidence grew, slowly but surely, like a small flame catching fire. He began to answer without waiting for me, checking his own work, even smiling when he got it right. The pencil taps turned into steady writing, and the page that once felt like an enemy started to look like a challenge he could conquer. I watched him, and in that moment I realized homework was not just about solving equations. It was about teaching patience, resilience, and trust. Minutes passed, and finally, with a grin spreading across his face, he solved the problem correctly. "I did it," he shouted, jumping up from the chair as if he had just won a medal. I laughed, clapping my hands, and told him how proud I was. That spark of joy on his face made the whole evening worth it. But what came next is what truly shook me. As he closed his book and packed away his things, he looked at me quietly. His eyes softened and his voice carried a weight far beyond his years. "Dad," he said slowly, "I don't really care about the math. I just like it when you sit with me. I feel like you're really here just for me." Those words froze me in place. I wasn't expecting them. For me, it was about teaching him math, but for him, it was about something much deeper: my presence. It hit me that children don't just want answers, they want connection. They don't remember the equations or the pages, but they remember the time, the attention, the feeling of being seen. I sat there quietly, my throat tight, trying to find the right words. Finally, I told him, "I will always be here for you. Homework or no homework, you matter more than anything else in this world." His little smile told me that he understood, maybe more than I ever imagined. That night I tucked him into bed, and his words replayed in my mind again and again. The truth is, we often underestimate the moments that seem small. We rush through homework, chores, routines, not realizing that for a child, these are the memories they hold on to. They don't always see us as teachers, but as anchors, the safe place where they can return again and again. And in that simple confession from my son, I learned something powerful. Love is not measured in grand gestures, but in the quiet minutes we choose to share. That was just the beginning of the story, because what happened after that night opened my eyes even more. And as I share the rest, you might see yourself or someone you love in these moments too. The next day felt like any other morning. Breakfast was on the table, the school bag was packed, and my son was ready to head out. But inside me, something had shifted. His words from last night stayed with me, echoing louder than the sound of the coffee brewing or the rush of the morning routine. "I just like it when you sit with me," simple words, but heavy with meaning. I kept thinking about how many times I might have brushed off his little requests in the past, how many times I told him, "Not now, I'm busy," or "We'll do it later." At the time, I thought I was teaching him independence, but maybe what he needed wasn't independence, It was presence. That thought stayed with me as I watched him walk into school, waving back at me with that bright smile he always carried. I realized that his happiness wasn't rooted in what I gave him, but in how much of me I gave him. That evening, when he came back from school, I decided to try something different. Instead of sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone while he unpacked his bag, I sat beside him and asked how his day had been. At first, he gave me the usual quick answers. It was fine. Lunch was good. We had gym. But when I kept asking, when I showed I was really listening, his face lit up and the details poured out. He told me about a game of soccer he played at recess, about a funny joke his teacher made, about the new book he borrowed from the library. His little world unfolded in front of me, and I realized how much I had been missing just by not asking. Later, when it was time for homework again, I sat with him without waiting for him to ask. He looked at me with surprise, as if he wasn't expecting me to give up my evening so easily. "You're here again?" he asked. I laughed and said, "Of course I am. This is our time now." His grin said more than words ever could. We worked through the assignments together, sometimes laughing when he made silly mistakes, sometimes pausing to talk about things far beyond school. He asked me questions about when I was a kid, about what I liked in school, about how I used to do my homework. I found myself telling stories I hadn't thought about in years, and in those moments, it didn't feel like parent and child. It felt like two friends connecting. That night before he went to bed, he gave me a hug tighter than usual. "I like this." He whispered, "I like it when you're just here." And again my heart tightened. I realized that this was more than homework help. This was about building a bond that would stay with him for years, maybe even shape the way he looked at relationships in the future. If he could feel seen, valued, and loved now, then maybe he would carry that strength into his own life when he grew older. But the true surprise came a few days later. It was a Friday evening, and usually Fridays were the time I let him play video games a little longer. But instead, he came to me with his homework book in hand. "Can we do it together now?" he asked. I was shocked. He wasn't trying to avoid it. He was inviting me in. And when I asked him why, his answer floored me. He said, "Because when we do homework together, it doesn't feel like homework. It feels like us." That line, simple as it was, brought tears to my eyes. Imagine that something I once saw as a chore, something he once saw as a burden, had now become a symbol of connection. It wasn't about the math problems or spelling words anymore. It was about shared time, about the laughter between mistakes, about the quiet encouragement that filled the spaces between numbers. And I thought to myself, how often do we as parents miss these moments? We get caught in deadlines, in bills, in the stress of our own responsibilities, forgetting that for our children, time is the most valuable gift. They don't always remember what toys we bought or what trips we planned, but they will always remember how much of ourselves we gave them. That weekend, I decided to take him out for ice cream. On the way, I asked him, "What's your favorite part of the day?" He paused, thinking carefully, and then said, "When you sit with me, even if it's just for homework." I smiled, fighting back the tears again, realizing that what he valued most wasn't expensive or complicated. It was simple. It was presence. As parents, we often underestimate the impact of our smallest actions. Sitting down beside our child for 10 minutes, listening without distraction, choosing to be there even when we're tired, those things leave marks on their hearts. I didn't know it before, but I knew it now. And the realization changed me. From then on, I made it a habit, not just with homework, but with everything. If he was drawing, I sat beside him. If he was building with blocks, I joined in. If he was reading, I asked him to read to me. These little gestures built a rhythm between us, a rhythm of trust, love, and togetherness, and with each passing day, I could see the difference. He was more confident, more open, and most of all, happier. That was when I finally understood what he had been trying to tell me that first night. It wasn't about the homework at all. It was about the bond. It was about showing up. It was about being there not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, fully present. That was the gift he wanted, and without realizing it, he gave me the gift of perspective in return. But this story doesn't end here, because one night, weeks later, he said something that completely changed the way I looked at myself as a parent. It was something I wasn't ready for, but it became the heart of everything I learned in this journey. It was late on a Sunday night. The house was quiet, the lights were dim, and my son was already in bed. I was sitting at the kitchen table with some papers scattered in front of me, trying to finish work I had pushed off all weekend. My mind was heavy, caught between deadlines and bills, between what I wanted to do and what I had to do. That's when I heard soft footsteps. I looked up and saw my son standing there, clutching his blanket, his hair messy from sleep. "Dad," he whispered, "can I tell you something?" I pushed the papers aside and nodded. He walked over slowly, sat down across from me, and looked serious in a way children rarely do. His small voice carried words I never expected. "You're my hero, not because you know everything, but because you always sit with me, even when I don't ask." I froze. My heart skipped in that instant. All the noise of my own worries faded. To him, my presence mattered more than my answers, more than my mistakes, more than my stress. He didn't see the tired parent, the one worrying about work. He saw the dad who sat beside him at the table, who listened, who cared. That moment cut through everything, and I realized how powerful love becomes when it's shown in the simplest ways. I pulled him close and hugged him tight. I whispered back, "I'm proud of you. And if you think I'm your hero, then you should know that you're mine too." His little arms wrapped around me, and in that embrace, I felt something deeper than words could ever describe. It was more than gratitude. It was connection, pure and unconditional. That night, after he went back to bed, I sat there reflecting. How many times had I believed that being a good parent meant providing the best things, working harder, doing more? Yet here he was, teaching me that all he needed was my time, my attention, my willingness to sit beside him. The math problems would fade, the schoolwork would pass, but what would remain was the memory that his father chose him over everything else. The following week, I started looking at life differently. When my phone buzzed during dinner, I turned it off. When work threatened to creep into our evenings, I set boundaries. When he asked for help, I didn't treat it as an interruption, but as an invitation. And slowly, I noticed a change not just in him, but in me. My stress felt lighter, my patience grew stronger, and my heart carried more peace. Because when you choose connection, you don't just give to your child, you heal yourself too. One evening, after finishing his homework together, he surprised me again. He asked, "Dad, when I grow up, will you still sit with me sometimes?" I laughed, half amused, half emotional. "Of course," I said. "I'll always sit with you, no matter how old you are." His smile stretched wide, and he said, "Then I won't ever forget how to be with people I love." That sentence was a lesson in itself. Children don't just watch what we do, they absorb it. The way we spend time with them becomes the way they learn to love others. I realized I wasn't just shaping his education, I was shaping his heart. By showing him presence, I was teaching him how to show up for others. By giving him patience, I was planting patience in him. And by choosing him over distractions, I was showing him what it means to value relationships. Weeks passed, and our little routine continued. Homework turned into story time turned into long talks turned into inside jokes, and through it all, the bond grew stronger. But the memory of that first night never left me. "I just like it when you sit with me." Such small words, yet they carried the weight of a life lesson I would never forget. Looking back now, I understand something important. Parenting isn't about perfection. It isn't about always knowing the right answer or never making mistakes. It's about presence. It's about the small moments that seem ordinary but carry extraordinary meaning. It's about showing your child that no matter how busy life gets, they matter enough for you to stop, to sit, to be there. And maybe that's the message I want to leave you with tonight. Life moves fast, work piles up, responsibilities grow heavier, and we convince ourselves that tomorrow will be the day we slow down. But children don't wait for tomorrow. They live in today. They need us in the present moment, not in some promised future. And when we choose to give them that presence, even in something as simple as homework, we give them more than help. We give them love that lasts a lifetime. As I close this story, I think of every parent, every guardian, every person who has someone looking up to them. Remember this, your presence is the gift. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. Just sit with them, listen, be there, because one day those small moments will become their biggest memories. And maybe, just like my son, they'll look at you and say, "You're my hero," not because you do everything, but because you're always here. That is the heart of parenting. That is the heart of love. And that is the lesson my son taught me on an ordinary evening that became extraordinary.